This is the Holy Gospel according to Luke, beginning in chapter 12. Glory to you, O Lord. Now Jesus said, I came to bring fire to the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. I have a baptism with which to be baptized, and what stress I am under until it is completed. Do you think that I have come to bring peace to the earth? No, I tell you, but rather division. From now on, 5 in one household will be divided, 3 against 2 and 2 against 3. They will be divided. Father against son and son against father. Mother against daughter and daughter against mother. Mother-in-law against daughter-in-law and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. He also said to the crowds, when you see a cloud rising in the west, you immediately say, it's going to rain. And so it happens. And when you see the south wind blowing, you say, there will be a scorching heat. And it happens. You hypocrites. You know how to interpret the appearance of earth and sky, but why do you not know how to interpret the present time? This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. You may be seated. And if you're like me, after reading that gospel, you kind of want to take a collective breath. Ugh, not a real exciting gospel. Matter of fact, I got an email from someone in the church this week that said, wow, you got a tough gospel this week. I'm not sure what you're going to do with it. And I thought to myself, Holy Spirit, grant some discernment. So I want to share with you this morning a real brief story, and not a story that I recommend you duplicating. Many years ago, a friend of mine by the name of Sarah told me that her 8-year-old son came to her one day and said, Mom, do you love God more than me? Well, my friend, she was very active in her parish. She was growing spiritually. She was deeply committed to God. She paused, and her son looked on at her, waiting for an answer, and finally, she said, yes, Ben, I do actually. I love God more than you. I don't recommend that story. Don't recommend you doing that to your kids. But as I recall her story, I hear in our gospel the words of Jesus. Do you think that I have come to bring peace to the earth? No, I tell you, but rather division. Now with Ben's question to his mom, Sarah, her answer is now a division between them. Mother and son have been divided by her response. And I suspect, and this comes out of 30 years of working with kids in trauma, I suspect that Ben has experienced this division in some way of diminishment. Maybe even seen it as a rejection by his mom. Sarah, however, understood it quite differently. She knew that the fullness of her life and who she was, including her motherhood, had to find its primary identity and meaning in God. Only then would she be able to fully love Ben and be the mother he needed and that she desired to be. So this morning I want us to contemplate relationships. Our distinct identity as persons is given through a various list of relationships. Our biological relationships, our natural relationships, our social relationships, some might even say our political relationships. These all come together to identify who we are. This includes our relationships with family and friends, at work, our beliefs spiritually, and even things we possess all serve to identify who we are. Some of these relationships are tangible. They're associated with people, with places, with objects. Some are not so tangible, but they're no less real. For example, our spiritual relationships, our beliefs, our attitudes. I want you to think of all the many relationships that each of us have. Regardless of whether we judge them as good or bad, healthy or unhealthy, taken together, this vast list of relationships, this vast complex of relationships, makes you and me the persons that we are. So ultimately, however, only one of these many relationships can finally be the most significant and decisive for us. This one relationship that we elevate above others makes us uniquely who we are and not someone else. So for example, if you decide that work is your most powerful, important relationship, you will look at life through the lens of work. If you decide family is your most important relationship, you will look through life at the lens through family. If I chose that my relationship with my parents, whom I am still blessed to have with me, is the definitive one, then all other relationships would be seen and lived out through the one relationship I choose to elevate, that being my parents. I would try to live their lives through mine. Their lives would become the lens through which I see and relate to others and to the world and even to myself. That one relationship would become decisive for who I am. It would become the criterion for determining and incorporating all other relationships that contribute also to who I am as a person. The one relationship that ultimately determines our identity is the one to whom we give our existence. The one to whom we give our life. And think about that. We're sitting in a church. Many of us would say, well, we give our lives to Christ. But what about the Olympian? What about the athlete? Is sports their number one relationship? What about the workaholic? Is the job the number one relationship? Jesus' relationship with the Father is what ultimately determines his identity and his being. He freely chose that one relationship above all others. And that does not mean that he rejected all other relationships. Rather, all his other relationships are mediated through his relationship with the Father. Jesus' choice brought about division with the religious leaders of his time. It brought about division within the world and all who could choose differently. So that is the choice that Jesus sets before us this morning. Who or what is the determining relationship that gives you your identity, that gives you your being? What relationship matters so much to you that you allow it to literally shape your life, shape your kids, shape your spouse, shape your occupation? Maybe it's your parents, maybe it's your church, maybe it's God, maybe even it's country. I don't know. But it is a choice that we make over and over, day after day, as we respond to and enter into relationships. It's a choice that will always bring about division. Do you think that I have come to bring peace to the earth? No. I tell you rather division. This is not the Jesus we're used to. It's probably not even the Jesus we want, if we're being perfectly honest. I mean, where is the water-walking, miracle-providing, dying for me Jesus? What happened to sweet baby Jesus? Asleep on the hay, no crying he made. This fire-bringing, family-dividing Jesus makes us uncomfortable. Now, God knows we already have more division on this earth than we could possibly know what to do with. We do not need any more division. We are divided socially, racially, economically, politically, religiously. Not even our own country is united against other countries of the world. There is division everywhere. And I don't know if I would go so far as to say higher than at any time in past history, but I tell you, There's a great deal of division in our world this day. It certainly is prominent everywhere we turn. There's division in our marriages, in our family, in our workplace, even in our schools. And that is not the division that Jesus brings. Do you hear me? The division that is portrayed night after night on your television about this group against that group, and this country against that country, and this person against that person, that is not the division Jesus is talking about. We humans have caused those divisions by our choices, by our relationships, and by ultimately how we act. We have made bad choices. So getting our life turned around means learning how to interpret the present time and choosing again. It means choosing the Father as the one primary relationship that determines who we are and all that we do. If we choose the Father as the one relationship, then it means our parents, our children, our spouse, our friends, they do not determine who we are. They contribute, but they do not determine. It means our jobs don't determine who we are. Our politics, our possessions even, do not determine who we are. God does. Those relationships do not necessarily have to end. Rather, they exist within the context of the relationship with the Father. There will be new dynamics, new priorities. To choose the Father will bring about some division. Jesus said it would. It will not, however, bring about a division that kills, oppresses, or separates. The division Jesus offers is about growth. He is growing us up into the fullness of life and holiness. Regardless of our age, we are always in the process of growing up. And growing up is difficult and it's often painful work. Division is the way of life and the way of growth. I mean, scientifically, biologically, if we look at the miracle of physical life and our own body, it is a division of cells. It is a division. Watch a child grow up. Cellular division. Growth in our physical bodies is a result of division. Go into a home where a teenager lives. On the surface, you may see conflict between parent and child, but at the deeper level, it's about division. The child is separating. The child is preparing. And it's what needs to happen from a healthy perspective for both the good of the child and the good of the parents. So just as division offers physical and emotional growth, so it offers spiritual growth. And Jesus is calling us to grow up and to bring the division that makes the growth possible. So for our part, we must re-examine our relationships and the priorities that we have given them. We must choose our priorities and give our primary relationship to the Father, to the exclusion of all other people, places, or objects. He has to be first. He has to be foremost. We don't lose everything else. It comes alongside, but it's under the proper pyramid of the relationship. This is the this is the division that loses nothing and gains everything. This is the division that does not diminish or reject others. Instead, this division offers wholeness and perfection through the grace and the love of Christ. It is the division that transforms our lives, makes sacred all our relationships, and if we allow it, heals the world. Amen.